have to teach you guys how to play, obviously.
Right. The journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step or something like that. This is the first step, is we got to teach you the very basics of the game.
Exactly. So once you learn the rules, it will officially be 30Q.
That's right.
And then if you want to, after this broadcast, you guys will be all set to go. You can start playing online, playing against friends. And as you improve, you can work your way up to the Dawn ranks. We'll talk more about the ranks later.
That's right.
But yeah, let's get into the rules. So the cool thing about Go, the thing that I think really distinguishes it from all other strategy games, is just how frickin' simple it is.
It is.
And that's the paradox. Those rules are so simple, and yet the game is one of the deepest out there. Here we go. So the game of Go is a 2-player perfect information strategy game. There are 2 sides, black and white, and you have a bowl of stones, and on your turn, you simply take a stone and you place it on an empty intersection of the board.
And it can be anywhere over the entire board. That's one of the things that makes the game so difficult. It's 9 by 9 is what we're showing you here, but any move, any intersection is valid.
So yeah, and so then white would respond, and you simply take turns placing a stone. You don't move the pieces like you do in chess. You simply place them on the board, back and forth. And so the goal of the game is to surround what's called territory. And this is empty space that you surround with your stones. So for example...
let's fill some pieces out here and we can show you what we mean.
Yeah, let's just take like a example here. So suppose later in the game, right, like black had a structure like this here. So this would be black's territory, this empty space that black is enclosing. And the way you would count it at the end is that this would be 6 points for black. So you look at the empty intersections, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that's 6 points. And that's what the game is about. It's called the surrounding game because you're trying to surround territory, and the most points of territory at the end wins.
Right, and as you can see here, white has a lot more area, kind of roughly surrounded, but this is cash right here. This is just pure cash. This is influence. It hasn't been completely sealed off yet, so you can't quite say that white has this, but white will probably get this.
Right.
So I guess that means we have to progress to the next rule, which is maybe the most interesting rule.
Right.
The other surrounding rule. So the other reason it's called the surrounding game is that you can surround your opponent's stones to capture them. So the way this works is, you can see the black piece here has 4 intersections that are open around it. These are called liberties. And so as long as a stone or a group of stones still has empty liberties around it, still has liberties, it remains on the board. But as soon as the other side takes away those liberties, the stone's captured. It's pretty simple. It looks like this. So let's say white got 4 moves in a row, just for sake of argument. At this point, black only has 1 intersection left. So if it's white's turn, white can play here, and the black stone is captured. So very simple mechanic. It works on the sides as well. You can see black has 3 liberties to start with.
2, 1.
And now is captured. And it's the very same in the corner as well, is that 2 at first and then down to 1 and captured. So that's the basic mechanic.
Yeah, and a group of stones is the same way. So if you have stones that are touching, that are next to each other, like these 3 stones count as one group. They share liberties, they live together, and they die together. And so if white were to surround all of its neighbors, then black would be captured as well. So
right.
This is the second rule of Go. If you're surrounded, you're captured. And then captures also count as points in scoring the end. So the last question is, how does the game end? And I think someone on chat actually asked that a moment ago. So you take turns, you build these territories, you try to capture each other. But by the end of the game, the whole board has sort of crystallized into regions of different territories. And so the game simply ends when both players pass. And this is also something very unique to Go. There is no set moment that signifies the end of the game. It's signified by agreement of the players that there's nothing more productive to do. So on your turn, you can play or you can pass.
Let's actually put together here just
let's
so
just make up like an end game so we can be a little more concrete about this.
Yeah, it's helpful to actually count it out. So let's make this some black territory here.
So we're just making up
Imagine we had just played out a whole
game
game just
here,
so everybody can see exactly what we mean when we say counting these points of territory. So let's say for instance, the end of the game looks like this. And we want to see who wins the game. We got to count up the number of points. We'll assume that there are no captures right now, because you'd also count the number of captures that you have as part of your points. Right. So let's count black first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 points. So black has 20 points and no captures. Total score is 20. Now white, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So in this game, black would win because black has 20 and white only has 19, assuming there are no captures.
That's a close game you've just engineered there.
I guess we're tuned in pretty well to a balanced game.
And so that's pretty much it. There's one more rule with a special case to learn, but essentially the essentials of Go are just that simple. You put down stones, you try to build territory, you try not to get captured. And the amazing thing is how those rules conspire to create this tremendous amount of complexity that you see in a lot of other games, but you see them in other games because the rules themselves are complex, right? You look at StarCraft, you look at even chess, right? It has a lot of different rules and a lot of different mechanics. And so the amazing thing about Go, and the thing that I just can't get over, is how you can still get that complexity from such simple rules.
Right, and that's also the difficulty of the game too, is it's so simple, you don't really have that much to guide you besides your own sense of how far you can read ahead and your own intuition about what's on the board, because every possibility is open. So you have to choose from all this huge web of possibilities. And mind you, a full board is 19 by 19. That's 360 possibilities at the start.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's kind of amazing that humans can play this game at all.
It's totally insane. So let's do the one other rule. So there's one more rule of Go, and this is they say so the situation. Oh, let's not slide the board. Yeah, the situation is called a ko,
which in Japanese means eternity. Which you'll find out exactly why right here.
Yeah. So wait, let's do the capture over suicide first.
Let's do that.
Here we go. So let's clarify one thing first. So suppose we have this situation. You can see we've got a couple different groups here. So this group here, these two stones form a group, right? They're next to each other. And they only have one liberty left. This liberty right here, right? That's the only empty intersection. So they are about, they may be captured very soon.
Right, so if it's white's turn, white can put a piece here. And normally you'd say, well, white doesn't have any liberties, so white just has to come off. But the rule is in Go, if you capture some stones to give yourself a new liberty, you capture before it would be suicide. So this stone goes on, these two pieces come off, and now white can stay on.
Right, so capturing overrules suicide.
Just by way of comparison, if it looked like this, and white wanted to play here, this would be suicide because you don't capture these two stones. These two stones still have an extra liberty sitting right here. So this would be a suicide move, white would come. But because white already has this, white can play here and capture these two.
Right. So this, that's just a clarification on the capture rule, but it brings up a very interesting situation.
Right.
Which is the last rule in Go. So the situation, let's put it in the center. The situation looks like this. And you might be able to see, if you're quick on the rules, you might be able to see the conundrum here. So Cole, what's special about this situation?
If I'm white, say I want to capture this black stone, just as before. That gets me another point. Why not take that stone? So if I'm white, I'll play right here. And as we saw before, capture before suicide. So I get to take this piece. All right, success. But now it's black's turn. And maybe black wants to take that piece right back because, well, it's almost the same situation. You've just flipped the colors. So now black wants to play right here. And now white says, well, I'd like to take that piece right back. And you can see this is already developing into a difficult situation, which is why this is called a ko in Japanese. This means eternity, which is what leads to, this situation leads to if there's not a special rule to deal with this.
Right, so there's an ancient story,
yeah.
Probably apocryphal, who knows? But there's a story that there were two dragons playing a game of Go long ago, and this was before there was a rule to deal with this situation. And so they just kept taking the ko back and forth, back and forth, back and forth for eternity.
And they're still playing today.
And they're still playing
Some
today,
would
right?
say.
So what is the ko rule? So there needs to be a rule to deal with this because otherwise the game will take forever.
Right.
And that's not very good for us. So we need a rule. And so the rule is that once one player captures, the other player is not allowed to immediately recapture the next turn. So in this case, if white captures, black would have to play, would not be allowed to take right back. Black would have to play somewhere else. And then later in the game, if the opportunity were still there, black could recapture after another set of moves were made.
Right, so for example, let's say the situation looked like this, and black wanted to recapture this stone. White's just taken this, but black wants to recapture. Black can't recapture immediately for the reason that Will just explained. So maybe black will play a co-threat, which is another move somewhere else that threatens to do something bad. Maybe like playing here. White doesn't want to let these stones get out, so white is going to respond over here, and now black can decide, okay, now because other moves have been played and the board position is different, now black can take this. This is a little bit more of a high-level play, so we won't go too much more into this, but you'll see this in the games that we have later today, and it'll be a part, I believe we have a co-occur in the film as well.
Yeah, there's definitely, it's funny, you hear people of all levels, no matter how good you are, like, co is like a terrifying word.
That's right.
They hear co, and it's like, and the cool thing about it is, the reason it's there is simply to make sure the game doesn't go forever. And yet it leads to, in the spirit of this game, it just leads to all this other complicated strategy of making threats elsewhere and making huge trades and just all kinds of craziness. And so you can have these very high stakes co-fights that are very exciting. So we might see some of those in the games later today. A lot of times in high level play, co's are pretty common.
Absolutely.
So that's it. So now you guys know the rules. Rule number 1, on your turn, you place a piece on an empty intersection, any empty intersection you like. Rule number 2, don't get captured. You can capture by surrounding and taking away the liberties. And rule number 3, if someone captures a co, you're not allowed to capture right back. And the game ends when both players pass. And it's that simple.
Yep, that's the whole thing. And amazingly, we've now come up with the hardest game in the world. There it is. So I want to remind everyone, for people who are just tuning in, this is our 6-hour chunk, Twitch Plays Go. We're going to be telling you more about why the game is interesting, some strategy that comes out of these basic rules. In just a little bit, we're going to be showing you the first feature-length documentary that Will and I co-directed, produced. So that's going to be free for you guys. And then a little later, we're going to give you a chance to play against a professional player by voting A, B on moves that we select for you. So you're going to be playing against a top player. And then we'll have some excellent commentary later on some high-level games from college players and streamers themselves.
That's right.
Do we want to transition to talking about some strategy that comes out of this, or do new 2 eyes?
Let's look at the ladder and then call it a day.
The ladder. This is
so there's
the journey is beginning.
Exactly. There is one more. So this is not a rule. This is just a strategy. But there's one more thing that you just gotta know as a beginner, and it's called a ladder. And this, I don't know. When I first saw this, something went off in my brain, and I was like, oh my god, I have to play this game.
You'll hear a lot about emergence in this game, which is where simple rules lead to complex behavior. And this is kind of the prototypical example where something new comes out of the rules that wasn't baked into the rules to start with. So, okay, Will, you're white. You want to capture this stone. How are you going to do it?
Yeah, all right, chat. What do we do? So this stone, right, it has 2 liberties. So I'm going to try to take one away. So because I have this one helping me, I'm gonna come from this side and threaten to capture this stone, right? You see now I'm threatening this piece and threatening to capture. And let's say suppose that black is determined to save himself, right? Black doesn't want to get captured.
Yeah, so, well, that only leaves one option. If black plays anywhere else, then white will just play here and capture this stone. If I play here, or if I play here, any of these moves, obviously I have to play here to give myself a little bit more breathing space. I've moved myself from 1 liberty to 2 liberties. So I'm going to just extend out this way.
Right, okay.
White's turn again.
So I'm determined to capture these stones. I don't want to let them get away. So I will go here. And once again, threaten to capture.
Making it easy for me. I only have 1 move once again. So we're just going to march right out and see if I can get out of this get out of this group of white stones.
And now you see what's happening. We've switched. Okay, I have the black one, so let me play black.
Sure, go ahead.
So you see what's happening, right? Threat, escape.
Now, if I play here, same situation.
Escape, and look at what's happening. Let's just play it out.
Yeah.
So there's this funny zigzag shape that's forming just because both players are determined to fight this battle, right? If black ever ignores, he gets captured. So the zigzag continues.
Right.
and this is called a ladder. And so the ladder marches along and marches along, but then when it reaches the edge of the board, something interesting happens. So let's see. So here we go. So every time I come out as black, right, I gain some liberties. But what happens here? So now, here, I'm coming out, but I'm hitting the edge. And I don't have an extra liberty on that side like I normally would. And oh boy.
Thank you very much.
And there they go. And so the whole thing is captured. So this ladder shape, you know, rarely do you see a ladder actually zigzag out like this in a game because both players, you know, black would be foolish to do this, right, and get captured on such a big scale. However, the potential for a ladder is always there all the time in Go games.
Right.
And so because this kind of shape is so simple, right? It's just 4 stones. So it happens all the time. And all the time you'll have things like this where black could run out. He won't if there's nothing in the way because he knows he's going to zigzag until he hits the edge. But if he has a friend somewhere here or somewhere like this along this path, then things are different, right? Because then when black comes out and we start zigzagging, and the same thing, but now because I have this friendly stone in the path, I connect to my friend, and now all of a sudden I have extra liberties. And now white's the one who's in trouble because black's going to come and cut like all this apart and all this stuff. So anyway, I hope that makes sense. The ladder is just such a cool little shape, and it appears all the time. And so one thing you'll see Go players like hunched over the board, like tracing with their finger a little zigzag all the way along.
Right.
So that's something that you'll want to keep in mind for later today when you get to play yourself.
This is the first example that we've introduced to you of something we like to call reading, where the two parts of the game, to really understand this difficult problem of the game, are reading and judgment. So reading is doing these tactical calculations. So I go here, you go here, I go here, you go here, I go here. And often you have these little local situations where you have to read ahead and figure out what's going to happen. This is very similar to what you see in chess,
right,
or another strategy game like that with 2 sides and no luck. And so reading is just about building that muscle so that you can see further ahead. And generally, the better you are at reading, the better you are at Go. And you can train by doing puzzles like in chess. But judgment is the other half of the game. And this is kind of the right brain side, where you have to think about how a shape looks in general because you can't read it out. There are too many possibilities. So for example, I can't read out the entire game because it hasn't even started yet. So it'd be foolish for me to try to imagine all possible games. There are too many possibilities. So I have to use my judgment and intuition about what would be a reasonable first move. So say I'd like to get this area first. Maybe I'll play here first. And now maybe, Will, you have some idea about where you'd like to play now that I've played that. Okay, he says over there. So at this point, I can't read out all the possibilities, too many options. I have to start exercising judgment. And so the judgment part of the game is what really makes it interesting and difficult, because it's not just reading ahead.